Need a new playmat? Playing with Power MTG now has merchandise. Go to playingwithpowermtg.com to order playmats and t-shirts, with more merch on the way. All sales help us grow the channel. You can also support us by purchasing on TCG Player through our affiliate links in the description. We love TCG Player because it gives the best prices online and still supports local game stores. Finally, you can support us directly through Patreon. You'll get access to our community, early access to videos, and even exclusive videos not available anywhere else. More info is in the description. Thanks for watching. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Playing with Power MTG, where we play with the most powerful cards in the most powerful formats. Another round is here, and we are bringing a few new commanders to the table. With all the sushi going around, we thought it might be a breath of fresh air to see some new commanders. So that's exactly what we did. We also wanted to announce that we will be at the DDM Gaming Competitive EDH 1K Championship this upcoming May the 2nd at the Bearded Dragon Games in New Jersey. We encourage you to sign up and battle us in the tournament, or just drop by and say hi. As a special treat, we will be recording the final four of the tournament to be featured in an upcoming episode of Playing with Power. Go to ddmgaming.com to get more details and sign up. We wanted to give a quick shout out to our patrons for their support. We have big plans for content this year, and we rely on direct support from people just like yourselves in order to bring this content to you. If you feel like you would like to contribute, even just $2 a month, you will get so much in return. More info is in the description. Thank you again to all who support us. Now, let's start off by showcasing our fighters this evening. First, we have Garrett piloting Sidisi, Brood Tyrant. This deck is a combo deck that uses the graveyard to layer several win conditions together, including things like Hermit Druid and Necrotic Ooze. Garrett's opening hand contains a Chrome Mox, Mana Crypt, Misty Rainforest, Green Sun Zenith, Cephalid Inkshrouder, Verdant Catacombs, and a Chain of Vapor. Next, we have Ryan piloting the 4-color pairing of Tymna the Weaver and Thrasios, Triton Hero. This version of TNT is called Shuffle Hulk, using Flash and Hulk to bring out the breakfast combo of Cephalid Illusionist, Nomads in Core, and a Shuffle Titan to continually mill until a deterministic win is achieved. Ryan's opening hand contains a Breeding Pool, Elves of Deep Shadow, Limdul's Vault, Soul Ring, Dispel, and an Overgrown Tomb. After that, we have Jacob piloting Prime Speaker Vannifar. This deck uses the Birthing Pod ability from its commander to assemble a line to combo off for the win. Jacob's opening hand contains a Flusterstorm, Pestermite, Summoner's Pact, Eternal Witness, Mana Vault, Ponder, and a Wooded Foothills. Finally, we have William piloting Teferi, Temporal Archmage. This deck, called Chain Veil Teferi, uses Teferi's ability with the Chain Veil to make big mana and go infinite, while also stacking the board to slow others down. William's opening hand contains a Blue Sun Zenith, Pongify, Force of Negation, Island, Polluted Delta, Academy Ruins, and a Copy Artifact. Without further ado, let's kick off this absolutely astonishing act of allies acquiescing answers. Garrett wins the saltine cracker eating competition and gets to start us off. Garrett plays a Misty Rainforest for turn. He cracks it for a Tropical Island. He casts a Chrome Mox, imprinting Cephalid Inkshrouder. He casts a Mana Crypt. He then casts Green Sun Zenith for 2. William responds by casting Force of Negation, exiling Pongify. Green Suns is countered and exiled, and Garrett passes the turn. Ryan plays a Breeding Pool, into play untapped, paying 2 life. He casts an Elves of Deep Shadow and gives the turn to Jacob. Jacob plays a Wooded Foothills for turn. He cracks it for a Tropical Island. He casts Ponder. He looks at the top 3, rearranges, and draws a card. Jacob ends his turn. William plays an Island for turn and passes. During his upkeep, Garrett loses his Mana Crypt trigger and takes 3 damage. He plays a Polluted Delta for turn. He cracks it for an Underground Sea. He casts his commander, Sidisi, Brood Tyrant. Sidisi enters, and Garrett mills the top 3, hitting a creature and creating a 2/2 zombie. Garrett ends his turn. Ryan plays an Overgrown Tomb, into play untapped, paying 2 life. He casts a Soul Ring. He passes. Jacob plays a Yavimaya Coast for turn. He casts a Mana Vault. He ends his turn. William plays a Polluted Delta for turn. He passes. During his upkeep, Garrett loses his Mana Crypt trigger and takes 3 damage. He casts an Apprentice Necromancer. In response, William cracks his Polluted Delta for an island. Garrett moves to combat and attacks Ryan with Sidisi and a zombie, triggering Sidisi's ability. He mills with Sidisi, milling a lab man, and creates a 2/2 zombie. Ryan takes the damage, and Garrett passes the turn. Ryan draws his card for turn, looks at the board, and passes the turn to Jacob. Jacob starts off his turn by casting Eternal Witness. Witness enters, and Jacob returns Wooded Foothills to his hand. He plays Wooded Foothills. He cracks it for a breeding pool, into play untapped, paying 2 life. He casts Pester Might, untapping his mana vault. Jacob ends his turn. William plays an Academy Ruins for turn, and passes. During his upkeep, Garrett loses his Mana Crypt trigger and takes 3 damage. He plays a Verdant Catacombs for turn. He cracks it for a Bayou. He attacks Ryan for 7, triggering his Sidisi again. Sidisi mills, hits a creature, and Garrett creates another zombie. In his second main phase, he casts Survival of the Fittest. He then casts Chain of Vapor, targeting his own Sidisi. All through, Garrett passes. At the end of Garrett's turn, Ryan casts Limdul's Vault. Ryan looks at the top 5, doesn't like what he sees, and decides to pay a life and do it another 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 15 times. Finally finding what he wants, he shuffles up, rearranges, and puts his 5 back on top. Ryan starts off his turn by casting Spellseeker. Spellseeker resolves, and he fetches up a Flash into his hand. Sitting with his hand ready, Ryan passes the turn. On his turn, Jacob casts his commander, Prime Speaker Vannifar. He passes. William plays an Ancient Tomb for turn. He taps his Ancient Tomb to cast Cursed Totem. That's a real problem for Ryan and Jacob, and Garrett responds by activating Survival of the Fittest, discarding Sidisi, and putting it back into the command zone. He fetches up a Protean Hulk into his hand. With nothing else, and everyone sighing a bit, Cursed Totem resolves. William passes. Garrett starts off his turn by activating Survival of the Fittest, pitching Protean Hulk and fetching up a Dark Confidant into his hand. He then activates Apprentice Necromancer. Well, at least he tries to, because that's when everyone reminds him of the Cursed Totem that's on the battlefield. Garrett then realizes his awesome line was thwarted, so instead he casts his Dark Confidant. Now he has to think of a new route, and Garrett ends his turn. Ryan draws a card for turn, stares menacingly at the Cursed Totem, and passes. During his draw step, Jacob takes a damage from his mana vault. He casts a Summoner's Pact. He fetches up a Reclamation Sage into his hand. He casts Reclamation Sage. Sage resolves and destroys William's Cursed Totem. Jacob casts Phyrexian Walker. He activates Vannifar, sacking the Walker, and fetches up a Quirion Ranger onto the battlefield. He taps his Tropical Island for blue, and then activates Quirion Ranger, returning Tropical Island to his hand to untap Vannifar. He plays Tropical Island as his land for turn. He activates Vannifar, sacking Quirion Ranger, and fetches up a Scrib Ranger onto the battlefield. He taps his Tropical Island again for blue, and then activates Scrib Ranger, returning the Tropical Island again to untap Vannifar. He activates Vannifar, sacking Scrib Ranger, and fetches up a Deceiver Exarch. Exarch enters and untaps Vannifar. He activates Vannifar again, sacking the Exarch, and fetches up a Breaching Hippocamp. Hippocamp enters and untaps Vannifar. He activates Vannifar again, sacking the Hippocamp, and fetches up a Tidewater minion. This is when he realized he messed up the line and has no way to activate Tidewater minion. He moves to combat and attacks Ryan with Eternal Witness and Pester Might. Ryan blocks Witness and takes the rest. Dismayed, Jacob passes the turn. At the end of Jacob's turn, William activates his Academy Ruins, targeting Cursed Totem in his graveyard. In response, Ryan casts Flash. In response to that, Jacob casts Force of Will, exiling a blue card and paying 1 life. With that, Flash is countered, and William's Cursed Totem goes onto the top of his library. William starts off his turn by tapping his Ancient Tomb to cast Cursed Totem. He plays an island for turn. He then casts Copy Artifact. Copy resolves, and William has it enter as a copy of Cursed Totem. Now that he knows the power of what the totem does to the table, he wants to make double sure that everyone is shut off. All through, William passes. During his upkeep, Garrett reveals a Walking Ballista off of Dark Confidant. He plays a Waterlogged Grove for turn. He casts a Mox Diamond, pitching a Sunken Ruins. Keeping up on his beatdown plan, he taps his Waterlogged Grove to help cast Walking Ballista for 8, putting 4 counters on it. He attacks Ryan for 6. Ryan blocks with his elves and takes 4. Garrett passes the turn. Ryan, in a pretty bad spot, casts Gilded Drake. Drake resolves, and he exchanges it with Walking Ballista. Ryan passes. During his upkeep, Jacob's Summoner's Pact trigger goes onto the stack. With a Cursed Totem out, he doesn't have the ability to untap a land with his Tidewater minion, cannot pay for his Pact trigger, and loses the game. William starts off his turn by tapping his Ancient Tomb to cast Basalt Monolith. He casts his commander, Teferi, Temporal Archmage. He activates Teferi, untapping 4 permanents. He passes the turn. During his upkeep, Garrett reveals a Narcomoeba through his Dark Confidant. Also during his upkeep, he loses his Mana Crypt trigger and takes 3 damage. He attacks Ryan with his Gilded Drake, Teferi with 3 zombies, and the rest at William. Ryan would have loved to use the Walking Ballista's ability to shoot the Drake, but the 2 Cursed Totems made sure that didn't happen. Damage happens, Ryan dies, and Teferi dies too. In his second main phase, Garrett plays a Nurturing Peatland for turn. He activates Survival, discarding Narcomoeba and fetching up a Necrotic Ooze into his hand. He sacks his Waterlogged Grove to draw a card. He sacks his Nurturing Peatland to draw a card. He casts Necrotic Ooze. He passes the turn. William plays an island for turn and passes. During his upkeep, Garrett reveals a Dread Return through his Dark Confidant. He attacks William with everything for 17. In response, looking for an answer, William casts Blue Sun Zenith for 3, drawing 3 cards and shuffling Blue Suns back into his library. William takes the damage, and in his second main phase, Garrett plays a Cephalid Colosseum for turn. He cracks his Colosseum to draw 3 and discard 3. He flashes back Dread Return, sacking Dark Confidant and 2 zombies, returning Protean Hulk to the battlefield. He casts a Demonic Tutor. In response, William casts Chain of Vapor, targeting Protean Hulk. Protean Hulk bounces, Garrett doesn't continue the chain, and Garrett passes the turn. On his turn, William casts his Commander for the second time. In response, Garrett casts Pact of Negation, countering Teferi. William, knowing what's about to happen, passes the turn. During his upkeep, Garrett pays for his Pact of Negation. Also during his upkeep, he loses his Mana Crypt trigger and takes 3 damage. He attacks William with everything he's got. William takes it all, and Garrett wins the game. Ladies and gentlemen, I've got to say, that game was something. Things were pivoting back and forth with each turn, pitching the favor of one opponent to another even through turns of priority. In the end, no one really saw the idea of Garrett moving to a raw beatdown plan being the reason they lost. Congrats to Garrett on his win. Through each of his setbacks, he was able to observe the board and saw an out where other pilots might not have seen it. Moving to a beatdown plan isn't really in that deck's wheelhouse, but Garrett had the insight to see that he could make it work. Ryan suffered on mana for a while, and his Limb Duels was very greedy. His draws were dead half the time, and he just wasn't in a position to fend off Garrett's attacks. These are the outcomes that happen sometimes with combo decks. Jacob had a super bad outcome with missing his Vannifar line during his turn, and not being able to pay for his pact on his next turn was a super bad beat. William was trying his best to play a control match, but Garrett's aggro plan proved to be too much for him in the end. The player of the game was Garrett. He made sure that even through his disruption, he could find his outs and play them effectively. The most valuable card was Cursed Totem. This artifact shut down 2 players' win cons at the table and severely nerfed the third. Having 2 on the field proved to be an unstoppable wall. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode. Tune in next time when we will duke it out to see who will be king of the competitive EDH table. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.